You're all welcome to this module of QIS on our governance second topic. We're talking about membership of the board, and I'm hoping that you're able to look at the small video, slide video that we shared with you so that we can have a good discussion today. Topic today is membership of the board. As you know, we talked about leadership by the board. Today we'll look at membership of the board. Now, this particular module and topic has 3 accountability standards for the topic, that all members of the board respect the Christian basis of the organization. They believe in the faith that we have a shared belief system in terms of values. We want to check that members of the board have been checked, have been screened to make sure that they can really work with children. And we discuss some of that. And finally, that the board understand their responsibilities. It could be legal, it could be financial, but we want to make sure the board understand their responsibilities. The 4th accountability standard, we did 3 at a time. We're starting from 4, 5, and 6. The first one we see that was that all members of the board respect the Christian basis of the organization or church or project, okay? That they respect what we subscribe to, what we believe in. The members of the board you're going to appoint as members of your board have a shared value base and ethos. And the questions we said we're going to look at would relate to these 3 areas. How do you find out that board members have shared values with you? We said, would you have interviews with the board members to know who they are, what they stand for, the things that really sit down in their core beliefs. The second thing is to find out, have they signed the organization's basis of faith? And you could have one, as I said the other time, could have a creed, could have a list of values that you subscribe to, and you want to check that the members of the board, particularly if they're Christians, that they have signed that belief statement. But if they're non-Christians, we also say that the board members, you need to check whether they subscribe to your ethos. And these are the questions we said we wanted to talk about. What kinds of documents would stipulate the core beliefs of your organization? Now, you want members of the board to sign them. What type of documents could you have? I'd appreciate any thoughts here. Are there documents that you know people use that underscore their values? That's the question for us.
I think some organizations create a code of conduct, which would include their values.
Okay. Code of conduct, yeah.
Maybe like a mission statement or a vision.
Yeah. Yeah, because those also, in a sense, guide anyone in understanding what you stand for as an organization, because they are determined to focus on those areas by way of mission or vision. Okay, those are 2 places we could look at. Let's go to the other question. How do you know that you have a shared, set of beliefs and ethos, and that people really respect what you stand for in an organization? If you're talking to board members, how do you know that actually this person and I have shared values?
I think probably you need to know quite about who that person is. Where have they come from? What's their background? Have you had some conversations with them to find out a bit about who they are, what their value systems is? That's my offering. I can see St. Paul's is unmuted, so please go ahead, David.
I was proposing something just similar to yours, that at least someone should know the background of that person. What is known about that person? How has he been engaged, or how has she been engaged in rather related activities, maybe of the church? How does he behave? What is his past history? Something like that. That's what I was saying.
Thank you very much, David.
I'm also thinking
that
if this person has been recommended by someone, then that recommendation can help you to know whether you have the shared ethos and values.
Okay. Yeah, recommendation, testimony. Yeah. One of the things I was thinking about, I've talked to people and I realized that they're passionate about things that I'm also passionate about. And if they're around the values and ethos for which we stand, and I would think, okay, we belong or we subscribe to the same school of thought. And consequently, we could be together in the same boat. Are there factors that you think would be important in determining who should be on your board? If you have to, what things would you think about? If I'm going to select members of the board, I need to think about 3 things, 4 things. Of course, values being one of them, shared sense of values and respect for each other's ethos would be a good one. But are there any other things you'd want to think about?
Each person should have something to contribute to the board. If it's a school, then you would expect them to have some interest. Maybe they're a parent, maybe they've got a background in teaching, or it might just be that they're a good leader and are passionate about your school. But there has to be some link there. You wouldn't just pick, some sort of political candidate who is just trying to make a name for themselves. You really need some link there that's going to suggest that that person's going to invest their heart and energy into it.
Thank you very much. I like that one. And sometimes you also want to think about what our needs for growth. We need somebody working with children, want somebody who is very knowledgeable in the area of special needs education for children, because that's an area we're going into. Maybe that's somebody who could advise us on the board. But we want to look at, their skills and what they bring to the board, to the organization to help management lead well. Let's go to the next standard. So this one is about, we talked about members of the board being screened so that we are found suitable to work with children. And I said at the time, some people would have, are required to do police checks. The other thing is that people can give testimonies about somebody to endorse that this is a good person. And the board members need to sign, a child protection policy as a way of committing that this is something we subscribe to and we want to do. So these are the 3 ways we gave as an example of how you can evidence that somebody is fit to work with children. Let's discuss the questions then. So the questions we put to ourselves are, first, why should members of the board or potential members of the board who are not going to work directly with children require to be screened? So the question is, members of the board not going to work with children directly, why should they be screened? And it's a question I've come across with some of the members in one place I visited. So what do people think? Why should they be screened?
I think that in one way or the other, the members of the board are also the face of the organization. So their reputation really matters.
The reputation matters. I've heard of a law in the US, I don't know whether we have it here, and you could be guilty by association. So you don't want to be associated to something that is not being done well. So you also don't want to associate with people who have a bad record and who may be known not to respect children, or may be known to abuse children. They're on your board. So that does not augur well with anybody who looks at your organization. In some countries, it's actually a legal requirement that the board members are screened before they are found fit to work with an organization. In Uganda, do we have a law like that? Has anybody checked? It's not a legal requirement for members of the board to be screened, is it?
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head, but I do know that the new Children Act says that every person is obliged to report any concern of child abuse, and if you withhold information or you don't act upon what you know, then you're liable. So let's imagine the worst case scenario is that you appoint somebody to your board who then later abuses children, and it's found that you didn't do everything that you could to avoid that happening, then by law you would be in trouble.
Well said. So what we are then saying is that it's incumbent, it's our responsibility to ensure that when we're getting members of the board, we've done everything within our power to find out that they're actually suitable and they don't have any stain in relation to working and or abusing children. I think we've talked about question number 3. May I suggest we get to the next slide. Standard number 6. So this one was about the fact that members of the board know their responsibility, they understand their legal and financial responsibilities as they serve on the board. And the idea is that you don't want members to just come and sit on warm chairs, but you want them to come and play their role in supporting the management or the director of an organization. And we say that with evidence that they understand their legal and financial responsibilities by ensuring that we have a constitution document setting out board structures, board rules, their responsibilities, in a sense, something like a terms of reference. You know, some people have, say, the governance charter, a board charter, but it's something that tells and explains to members of the board or stipulates that this is your function, and you'll be held liable if you do not execute this function, which you know so well, very well. Okay, so the other thing we might do is to interview the members of the board to find out that they know those responsibilities. Yes, we're happy to do the discussion questions. We asked what would be the most critical factors in identifying the membership of a board?
I want to know that they don't have a criminal record that would bring me down. It's not everything. I know somebody who has a criminal record and it was for trespassing on a railway line when he was 16 years old. It's hardly relevant to him working with children or being on a board. So, you know, it's about relevance. And if somebody's been convicted of fraud, you wouldn't be appointing them to a board. If they're obviously convicted of any aggression, violence, theft, abuse, then you wouldn't be appointing them to a board.
Okay. So that is reputation and character is key.
I'm also thinking about the kind of skills that persons have, so that you know how they will be contributing to the board. For example, you can look at strategic connections. If someone has a skill in maybe fundraising, but also has strategic connections, like some of those can help to identify the person that can be part of the board.
Okay, it's a good one. You want to find out the kinds of skills they bring to the board. And some are strategic, as you said, so they can contribute to the supporting the leadership of an organization. And I think, again, it depends on what kind of work, the nature of the work you're doing, because that can also dictate what kind of skills they want to recruit on the board. So those are two factors already. One is about good character, good reputation. The second one is that they bring a set of skills into the mix. Some might be financial, legal, others are good strategic thinkers, others are involved in bring skills of a specific technical area. Those are two factors. Any other factor that anybody thinks about?
I'm also thinking about availability of this person, because you might find that the person you're recommending has a lot of other engagements, busy schedule, that you find that you have no time to gainfully impact on your organization if you choose him to be part of the board.
I know a board where one of the members is not available actually. And the policy is such that if they do not attend a certain number of meetings consecutively, they cease to be members of that board because they are not available to execute their function. That's a good one, availability. I talked to a member of a board who told me that this person worked with boards, and he said some people come to the board, they want to be a part of a board because they feel that it enhances their reputation. And I found that a bit selfish. And you'd want to find members of the board who are saying, I've come to give and to enhance the growth of the organization, as opposed to by being part of this board, my reputation is enhanced. So for me, that would be critical, that when people are coming, you feel like they're coming to give of their best and to make the organization stronger and better. Now, the last one is an area I wanted us to think about and discuss. The board is only a policy organ and is not liable for any fiduciary responsibilities. Discuss. Because they are not management, they just do policy and they watch from afar. So if you messed up, maybe they're not liable because they're just board members. What do you think?
I think that depends on the type of board that you're setting up. There are some that have their legal obligations. Well, all of them have legal obligations, but they will, as a board member, they actually sign some responsibility. So they effectively become shareholders, and they might only be liable for, you know, £1 or 10,000 shillings if the whole thing goes down. But if an NGO or something goes bankrupt, I would imagine that the NGO board has the right to investigate. I mean, that's why we have to report every year. You submit your accounts and so on. And if there's money that's stolen, then yes, you can look at the staff, but one also has to ask questions of the board. Were they doing their due diligence over what staff were doing? Did they know? Were they asking the right questions? Were they a part of those things happening? So I do think that they have some liability, even if it's not particularly of great financial significance to them.
Interesting. I'll introduce an interesting word there, due diligence. And you're saying board has got to do, part of its responsibility is to do the due diligence in supporting an institution run well. Otherwise, in some way, they will be held liable. If not for money, you might think about their own reputation might not be very good thereafter, that they oversaw the collapse of an institution when they should have been able to be there to support it to grow and do what its mission is about. Any other thoughts about the liability of a board member?
So I'm just me again. I think that when we're selecting our board members, one of the things that it's really important to recognize, you're not just asking them to turn up to, let's say, a 2-hour meeting once every 3 months. If you're going to be a board member that's serious and help that organization to move forward, then you have to invest time in it. And so it's not just about turning up to a board meeting. So I think as we look for our board members, let's be honest with them and say, we think that the commitment is, you know, X number of days per month or X number of hours, and you will be asked to come to the board meetings, however often they are. And we would expect this from you outside of the board meetings. Reading papers, meeting staff, you know, meeting beneficiaries in the case of an NGO, reading documents, and playing an active part. It's not a small task if you're going to do it properly.
As we draw to a close, is there any question that anybody want to raise in this last few seconds?
I'm just thinking of the second question. For me, I think I'm looking at what does the constitution of this particular institution state? Looking at the board going beyond it being a policy organ, what else is it supposed to do? So depending on that, I think they are liable and accountable. That's my thought on that.
Okay. So it's interesting. It would be helpful for any board member, therefore, to understand what they're responsible for, what they're liable for, as they serve in that responsibility. Otherwise, hopefully, we'll be able to reflect on how we can get good board members to serve our organizations well. So thank you very much. See you next time.